This content was brought to you by ReloQuest, your innovative travel management solution. Welcome to the Service Department News Podcast, where we discuss all the latest news and developments from across the service department, Aparthotel and extended stay sectors. Today I'm speaking with Karim Malak, CEO of Adagio Aparthotels. Karim, could you kick off by telling us how many Adagio properties you've had to close due to the COVID pandemic? And how many you've kept open through the lockdown restrictions?
Okay, so hi everybody. I'm actually talking to you, talking about opening and closing properties from one of our properties in Paris, at Adagio Paris-Bercy, where we'll be welcoming new customers as of tomorrow. And so we're all very excited. You may hear some sound in the background because it's lots of people buzzing around, making sure everything's okay. So coming back to the question, well, at the time in February, I mean, employee and client safety was really our first priority, and wanted to make sure that everything was good and safe for our clients. All the more, as you know, some of our clients have medical conditions and stay at Adagio during their long-term therapies at the hospital. So we introduced social distancing and other measures quite early, actually. And then when we started to anticipate travel restrictions, especially in France, and so we decided to close some sites and concentrate staff and guests on a limited number of sites. As you would imagine, as we operate in 13 countries, 8 of them in Europe, each one with its own system, schedule, and rules, it was quite a task to follow all the regulations. But coming back to the number, at the end, out of the roughly 100 we have in Europe, 28 Aparthotel stayed completely open to the public throughout the period. A couple more had long-term guests who were authorized to use the apartments, but the Aparthotel was mainly closed to the public. And that was the case mainly for medical staff. And some others were in an in-between situation because they opened for part of the period, because we had to help our guests get back to their homes. Some were really stranded and because of the travel restrictions. So roughly I would say 30%, 28 actually out of the 100 stayed opened. And I was really impressed and humbled really by the level of dedication of our staff. They handled the period extremely well, despite the stress of the period. The guests' questions, the relocations and such. And they managed to keep their spirits high. So overall, a remarkable achievement from our teams.
Mm-hmm. And how have occupancy levels stood up in the properties which did stay open?
Well, as you can imagine, they weren't the best. Though we had some sites running on very high occupancies because of basically of guests who were stranded. But that was more of the exception. Once you take into account all of the long stay guests that we managed to regroup on specific sites, and taking into account all of the frontline workers we hosted, we were running on an average of 40% occupancy, but with some sites as low as 12%, of course. But again, that's for the 30% of sites that were actually open. The majority of the sites were on 0% occupation. Anyway, it was reassuring to see our clients happy in our Aparthotels. And for those Aparthotels that were open, our staff received so many thank you notes. And I guess in this complicated period, our guests were particularly enjoyed the interactions with the staff and the friendly atmosphere they strive to always maintain. I mean, that's what we've been going for. The culture of friendliness and solidarity was particularly adapted to these times, even at 40% occupancy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You alluded to the work that you've been doing to accommodate medical and other key workers. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Well, obviously, for all sorts of reasons, we felt it was our duty to accommodate medical workers, and of course, they were one of the segments we could go after. At the end of the day, at the end of this period, we'll be having roughly 5,000 room nights that were occupied by direct medical staff, not counting all of the other frontline workers. And a lot of them told us that the stay at Adagio was their bright spot of the period. We took extra good care of them with various gifts, attentions, and gestures. And I think all of our staff was particularly proud to accommodate medical workers. So it was nice to be able to participate in the broader society's effort to control the epidemic.
Mm-hmm. And Accor, one of your parent companies, has been partnering with the French government throughout the crisis. What can you tell us about that?
Well, what I can tell you is that as the CEO of Adagio, this period has certainly shown the value of being part of Accor. So, as you were mentioning, Accor has been partnering with the French government, was in the forefront in terms of social responsibility, in terms of media presence as well, much more than other hotel groups, and also operational excellence. So, for instance, Accor has been leading the entire tourism industry in France to create a label for hygiene and develop best practices and basically promote best practices in order to attract the most possible number of tourists in the following period. And I think it's very important that the industry shows that it's working on hygiene, on security, and on safety. And I also think it's been very reassuring to our partners and lessors in particular to see that Accor was 100% behind us.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to switch the order of the questions here slightly, Karim, because it makes sense to move on to the piece about operating and staffing practices and how you think they will be affected in the short to the medium term as a result of this pandemic.
Sure. So fundamentally, our first concern obviously is employee and guest safety. So we have reviewed from head to toe all of our operating procedures and worked with our partners as well, cleaning companies in particular, to uphold the highest possible level of hygiene standards. Obviously, we've been ordering and delivering on site the proper protective equipment for our staff in particular. We've also been taking lessons and from the hygiene label Accor has devised. So at the end, many changes have been made in terms of breakfast concept, in terms of how we take care of our lobbies, in terms of our staff. We'll be implementing what do you call plastic plexiglass on the counters and so on. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that we weren't expecting to do a couple of months ago, but which have become basically the norm now. More importantly, the staff has been trained several times. It's very important for us, and what we've been really working upon is to maintain a friendly atmosphere despite social distancing, because I think that's also one of the elements that clients will be looking for. Of course, they'll be looking for a good deal, and we can provide that with Adagio Aparthotels, with Adagio, the 4-star brand, or Adagio Access, the 3-star brand, but also a friendly experience. So we're really working on that right now, devising a way to keep in touch with the clients, well, to keep in touch, so to speak, and create events that can be held whilst preserving all the safety rules and all the social distancing.
Okay, so there has been an element of the on-property programming has continued throughout all this.
Well, to a certain extent, some has been virtualized.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've been delivering some aperitif stuff to the guests in their apartments. So we've been trying to use both technology and staff to uphold some kind of contact and friendly atmosphere, despite the current situation. And also, we think that's something we've seen, given the notes we've had from clients that were particularly emotional and really touched by the different gestures we did.
Uh-huh. You've got quite an ambitious rollout plan for the brand, lots of new openings in the pipeline. How do you think the pandemic will affect that? Will it slow it down considerably?
Well, obviously, there's an effect in the short term. Some of the openings we had planned in 2020 will be postponed to later this year. Because the economic impact will be borne by all of the stakeholders. I mean, guests, of course, because guests will not travel as much. Also management, we've all taken a pay cut, obviously. Employees, governments who will be helping the tourism industry, landlords, franchisees. So all of us will have a cross to bear in 2020. But and I think that your publication has already relayed this quite thoroughly. It's clear that the Aparthotel segment is in a much better position than other segments in the hospitality industry. Social distancing is here to stay for a while. And I think Adagio apartments have fully equipped kitchens, and the vast majority of Adagios have shops in the lobbies. So we're all very well prepared for guests who can prepare their meals without the hassle of having to queue somewhere. We're also in a better position than hotels to help clients work in their apartments. We've made sure that our apartments were comfortable for remote work. They were before the crisis, and so they're still now. So basically, I think that the rollout plan in the short term will be changed, but in the medium term, it won't be altered. Let's say from 2021 onwards. We're lucky to be backed by two huge hospitality companies in Accor and Groupe Pierre Vacances Center Parks, and therefore we have pretty sound financials, and we've proven through this period that we were solid, that we were also a responsible DC. So there's no reason for a fundamental change in our rollout plan. Basically, I mean the fundamentals are still very favorable.
Yeah, you alluded to how well the sector has performed in comparison with the mainstream hotel sector in particular. How do you think the service departments and Aparthotel sector in general will perform as restrictions are lifted? Do you think it will continue to outperform other asset classes?
Well, as far as Aparthotels are concerned, I see two fundamental advantages. One is obviously a safe stay where social distancing can be enforced and shopping minimized. So a very straightforward value for Aparthotels. And B, second point would be an affordable accommodation, something that we've always offered. It's cheaper to stay in an Aparthotel or a service department than in a hotel as soon as your stay is more than 2, 3, 4 days. So, all the more, people who use hotels generally or service apartments generally travel for a good reason, and these reasons will still be valid in the next years. Not everything can be done remotely. I think this period has proven very conspicuously that unequivocally that it's pretty difficult to do everything remotely, and people will continue to travel in Aparthotel and service apartments. So, I mean, when you deliver your clients a safe, friendly, practical solution for good value, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't do well. So, basically, that's from the client perspective. If you're talking more about the investor perspective, in terms of asset class, I think the same fundamentals still apply. I mean, high occupancy, lower variable costs, and cost will be obviously an issue in the next couple of months. So higher GOPs, better return on equity, given that construction costs are basically the same as in hotels. So I think the fundamentals haven't changed. I wouldn't say that Aparthotels will do as well as we would thought they would have before the crisis, but they'll definitely do better than other asset classes, in particular hotels.
Thanks for listening to the Service Department News podcast. If you'd like to keep up to date with all the latest industry news, head over to servicedepartmentnews.com and sign up to our twice-weekly newsletter. Service Department News is part of the International Hospitality Media portfolio. This November, IHM is launching the Urban Living Festival in London, welcoming urban innovators and investors at the cutting edge of contemporary hospitality and real estate. Don't miss out on a great opportunity to reconnect with your peers and investors face to face, while helping to define where we stay, live and work. For more details, visit urbanlivingfestival.com.